Why do God's chosen struggle against orgies, even more intensely than others? For the time that is past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatry. This temptation is not accidental. It is a targeted, calculated strategy designed to bring down those with purpose. What you are about to hear is not a criticism or judgment, but a timely alarma revelation that could help you avoid falling where others, even spiritual giants, have already fallen. Because this battle is not only against the flesh, it is against spiritual forces that seek to destroy you. It is no coincidence that some of the most anointed individuals with the greatest callings and divine assignments marked by heaven are precisely the ones who face the most intense sexual battles. It is not a coincidence that behind many falls, scandals, and spiritual defeats, there is a silent, dark, and destructive pattern: unbridled desire. Many believe that the strongest battle for Christians is against poverty, disease, or witchcraft. But there is an older, more subtle, and more effective war: the war against the flesh. Against internal desires that no one sees, but that scream loudly when no one is watching. And here enters what few dare to say aloud: the practice of orgies, disguised as freedom, pleasure, or exploration, is contaminating even those with prophetic callings, divine dreams, and destinies that could shake nations. Why? Because there is no greater weapon of hell than to make a chosen one destroy their legacy with their own decisions. An orgy is not just a physical act. It is a portal, an altar where the soul is fragmented, where spiritual doors are opened, where spirits are transferred, and where God's purpose is slowly weakened like a rope, fraying without you realizing it. Those who participate often believe they are simply living, enjoying, or experimenting. But what they are really doing is exchanging their inheritance for a plate of momentary pleasure. Consider this: Israel, God's chosen people, was contaminated on several occasions not by wars, but by orgies disguised as pagan rituals. The people began to have sexual relations with Moabite women. And it wasn't just sex. It was a trap, a strategy of the enemy to lead Israel away from God. And what happened? God himself turned away from them, and a deadly plague began to destroy them. Look at Samson. He had the strength to bring down armies, but couldn't control his desire for a woman. He was not trapped with iron chains, but with seduction. And his fall didn't begin when he was captured, but when he started playing with fire. The same happened to many who today no longer preach, no longer pray, no longer have spiritual hunger. Because a misdirected sexual experience not only takes away purity, but also vision. God's chosen ones fight against this because they carry something very valuable. Because when the enemy sees that he cannot defeat you with poverty or disease, he will try to use pleasure as a trap. He doesn't need to kill you. He just needs to seduce you enough so that you extinguish the fire of God you carried within yourself. And when a person enters that kind of environment group settings, rituals disguised as sexual encounters, where there are no longer limits or conscience, what is really happening is a spiritual disconnection. It's as if the soul gradually shuts down, the conscience becomes numb, and what once caused shame is now celebrated as normal. That is the real danger. The problem is that everything repeated with pleasure ends up forming a mental stronghold. And then, even if you want to leave, you feel like you can't. It's no longer just desire. It's a chain. It's a spiritual addiction. It's as if darkness had found a door to live inside you without asking permission. But the saddest part is this: many who struggle with these things don't do so because they are weaker. They do so because they are more powerful. The enemy does not attack those who pose no threat. He seeks to destroy those who, if fully awakened, would be a spiritual bomb in God's hands. That's why the chosen feel these struggles more intensely. Because their calling is higher. Because their voice carries more weight. Because their obedience can free thousands. And do you know what is the most dangerous part of all? that the world system has made, talking about this a taboo, something no one wants to preach about, something even within churches is hidden. But God doesn't want you to hide it. He wants you to confront it. Because there is no liberation without confrontation. There is no restoration without truth. If you are going through that struggle, you are not a lost cause. You are not a shame to God, but you are a target for hell. And that's why you need spiritual weapons, not weapons of empty religion, not weapons of cheap morality, but weapons of the Spirit, truth, prayer, fasting, the fire of the Holy Spirit. You need to return to God's presence as someone who is wounded but still alive, and say to Him, Lord, do not allow me to destroy with my desires what you built with your blood. The chosen fight against orgies because that practice destroys the most valuable thing they have, intimacy with God. Not because God stops loving them, but because the soul becomes so filled with noise that it no longer hears Him. But there is hope. There is always hope. Because where sin abounded, grace abounded much more. Because even though you fell, you were not defeated. And if you rise, you will be more dangerous than ever for hell. Today is a good day to start anew, to close doors, to ask for forgiveness, to restore what seemed lost. If this word touched your heart, write in the comments, I am a chosen one of God, and I rise today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because here we speak truths that few dare to say, but that your soul needs to hear.